The next contestant is Jagan Rama with the speech titled Change Your Story, Change Your Life. Change your story, change your life, Jagan Rama.
We are all born with something special within us, but we experience tragedies and struggles, and life brings you down to your knees. Now think about an egg. If you drop it, instantly a mess, failure, and an ending. But if you drop that same egg in a boiling water, it transforms to something stronger. Hardships either breaks you or it transforms you into something stronger. Contest chair, Toastmasters, and my fellow eggs. Today I'm going to share with you my 3 lesson learns I learned. Now 3 years ago, my marriage fell apart. I was broken and I saw myself as a failure. I coped the only way I knew, which was drinking. My drinking started off as a getaway. It got into a habit, and I was eventually addicted. My usual bartender would greet me with, "The usual, mate?" One night after my usual drinks, I was driving back home, and the road was empty. And I looked up in my rear mirror, and I saw a white car chasing with bright lights. Eventually, it got onto me, and I got pulled over. I was caught drink driving. Now, what was to follow from there was more hurtful than the shame of having been reckless. I still remember the night when I had to rush back home after my drink driving. I had to face her, my mother. The woman who loved me unconditionally. She didn't tear, she didn't cry, she didn't even speak a word. But what I saw in her eyes that night was something which I've never seen in years: disappointment. But that was it. That was the moment I learned my first lesson. The time that it started to rewrite my story. So that night itself, I Googled, how do I master my life? And guess what came up? Toastmasters came up. So immediately, the next day, I walked into a meeting, and I started speaking to an audience. My voice started to tremble, my hands started to shake, my bum started to twerk, and my mind just went blank. But week after week, I turned up and I spoke about my stories of pain and failure. And eventually it grew into stories of new hope and growth. Now what I learned was my weakness was not a vulnerability, it was a superpower. With the first step, after changing my story, the next thing I had to do was rebuild my confidence. And so I had to have a new mindset. Now, I only could think that Mondays are the worst days. And how many of you feel like Mondays are the worst days? Say aye. So many of us would crawl out of the bed and feeling uninspired and not energetic. I felt that same way. So I decided Mondays is going to be my new Fridays. How did I do that? Firstly, I started to dress up sharp, wore a bright smile. I was even dancing and singing in the shower. Sorry for that mental picture. But it was energizing and enthusiastic, and that was the small steps that I needed to make a difference when no one was seeing. Now with the second step, after changing my mindset, I learned my lesson that happiness doesn't just lay on your lap. Importantly, you got to create it. Now with changing my mindset and my story, the third and most powerful lesson that I learned. How many of you would like to know? Raise your hands. That is the strategy I used. I raised my hand. In Toastmasters, when they asked for a timer or a grammarian role to be taken on, I raised my hand. And when there were roles for competitions and for any speeches, I raised my hand. I just kept on raising my hand. Now, it was hard for me to raise my hand, given that in the past, when I had taken on a responsibility for something or someone, they left. But that, I realized, was the shifting moment. My mindset was starting to change. And I realized the most important lesson from there is that we grow by giving. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm a speaker. I'm an inspiration to my community, hopefully. I learned the new way, the healthy way to love with my newfound partner who was loving and a supportive mother behind me. To all of you seeking for growth, let me just share with you that when an egg breaks from the outside, it cracks and a life ends. But when the same egg, it breaks from within, a new life begins. Your past may have hurt you and broken you, but your future is yet to be written. You have the power to change your story, to change your life. 3 lessons learned: don't hurt the people who love you. Change your mindset. Grow by giving. Hardships, hardness. But my fellow eggs, your power lays with you to change and hatch your potential.